It is the Jewish practice to stand while praying. If you check the book of Luke, chapter 18, verses 10 to 14, the Bible says, 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee. So in verse 11, you can see the Bible said the Pharisee stood and prayed. So it is the Jewish practice to stand while praying. But Paul introduces us to kneeling down while praying in verse 14b of the same Luke chapter 18. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalted himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. So kneeling down to pray displays earnestness, total concentration, submission, reverence, the lesser before the greater. Let's see the following example. Number 1, Jesus knelt down while praying in Gethsemane. Luke chapter 22, verse 41. The Bible says, and he was withdrawn from them about a stone cast and knelt down and prayed. So that is an example laid down by Jesus. Then number 2, we have Peter. Peter at the upper chamber where the corpse of Dorcas was laid. In the book of Acts chapter 9 verse 40, the Bible says, but Peter put them all forth and knelt down and prayed, and turning him to the body said, Tabitha, arise. So in that example, Peter knelt down to pray for Tabitha, which interpretation meant Dorcas. Peter knelt down to pray. We can see another example in the life of Stephen. Stephen knelt down at the point of his martyrdom. In the book of Acts chapter 7 verse 60, the Bible says, and he knelt down and cried with a loud voice, Lord, lay not this sin to their charge. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. Stephen, when he was praying for people who stoned him, he knelt down. So both postures are good. Standing or kneeling down to pray, both are good and acceptable. It all depends on certain factors. What are the factors that determines the position that one takes while praying? What are the conditions that determines the position for prayers? Number 1, the level of your faith. Some people's faith agree with kneeling down to pray, while some people's faith agrees only with standing position. Whichever position you choose, one of the factors that determines it is the level of your faith. Number 2, environment is another factor that determines the posture we take while praying. Whether to stand or to kneel down while praying, it depends on the environment. Environments such as official place or secluded place, at home, event place, mountain, your closet, secluded area, and so on and so forth. All this determine the position one would take while praying. Number 3, type of prayer. The type of prayer you are praying will also determine the position you are going to take to pray. Personal, congregational, ceremonial, deliverance, prayer of agreement, joint prayer, intercessory prayer, and so on and so forth. All these types of prayer will determine the posture or the position one will take to pray. Number 4, understanding. Spiritual understanding that one has also will go a long way to determine the position you will take to pray. Your spiritual understanding about prayer, secret of prayer, the powers in the kneeling down or the power in standing, and the understanding about God himself. The number 5, divine revelation. The level of divine revelation you have, what is revealed to you about prayer personally, or the position that you personally receive from God to use while praying. In the course of your experience and dealing with God, determine the position you will take while praying. Then number 6, divine instruction. The divine instruction you receive also determine the posture you will take. You could be led to stand to pray. You could be led to sit down. One could also be led to kneel down. Like in the example of Peter that I cited, he knelt down to pray on the corpse of Dorcas, and I believe he was divinely led to kneel down. Imagine, you want to pray for a corpse and you kneel down. It's uncommon, it's rare. So that shows it must have been a divine instruction. So either you stand up to pray, or you kneel down to pray, or you choose to sit down to pray. It all borders on one or many of these factors. But whatever you decide to choose, let it be such that goes along with your faith. Because without faith, it is impossible to please God. And the Bible says the just shall live by his faith.